Did you know these things about fishing?
At the moment, almost 1/3 of the world's population of fishing is being overfished, which means that more fish are catched than they can reproduce. A huge part of catched fish, almost 20 million tons yearly, are thrown back to sea dead as unwanted catches. When large populations of fish are removed from reefs, it throws off natural balances which can harm whole oceanic ecosystems. We went to interview a local professional fisherman, Jarno Aaltonen. He has his own company, Pullankala. That's what he told us. The loss of professional fishers is a real problem in Finland at the moment. Fishing as a job usually goes in family from one generation to the next, but that doesn't really happen anymore, which shows us a loss of fishers. In 10 years there could be a time when only a few fishers are left because they all retire or are so old that getting on board is really hard for them. The job is usually so hard that younger people don't want to do it. Also, boats and other devices haven't developed to the level they want nowadays. Another thing that affects the number of fishers is the problems of availability of marine areas.
The regulations for professional fishers come from EU directives. How can I fish and what fish species, at what times and how much? The directives also state what animals are protected. For example, the great cormorant is a fully protected species, but it harms the development of populations of fish all around the Baltic Sea, which makes fishing harder. Seals cause so much harm too that there's no point in fishing during a few months when there's a lot of seals that need food. Jarno has a special fish net where seals can't get in to eat. He also has fish traps that make high-pitched sounds and drive off seals. Thanks to Jarno for the interview.
The port of Piraeus is the chief seaport of Athens, Greece. It is the busiest passenger port in the Eastern Mediterranean, from which dozens of ferries depart every year for the Greek islands, and hundreds of cruise boats arrive every year. With about 18.6 million passengers, Piraeus was the busiest passenger port in Europe in 2014.
The port consistently ranks in the top 10 cruise destinations in Europe and the Mediterranean. As a result, in 2019, the port was awarded Best Cruise Port in the Eastern Mediterranean region from MedCruise.
Regarding historical information, Piraeus, or Piraeus, was the ancient port of Athens throughout the Archaic, Classical and Hellenistic periods, and in fact consisted of 3 separate harbours, Kantharos, Zea and Eunychia. The first was the largest and was used for commercial activity, whilst part of Kantharos and the other 2 smaller harbours were reserved for military use to house the massive Athenian fleet. The port became a thriving settlement in its own right and was a vast complex of ship sheds, warehouses, banks, shipyards, and many other secondary businesses such as shops.
As of April 2016, the port ranks 13th globally in terms of container capacity. In 2007, the port of Piraeus handled 20,121,916 tons of cargo, making it the busiest cargo port in Greece and the largest container port in the East Mediterranean. As for environmental matters, Piraeus Port Authority (PPA) calls itself the Green Port of the Mediterranean Sea. PPA states that it has disposal services for all types of ship-generated waste.
The port conducts water quality tests and works with nearby schools to implement a seawater quality monitoring program. Biannually, the water and sediment throughout the whole port area is sampled and tested for air quality monitoring as well as to enhance the greenery around the port. Other universities around Greece have contributed. As part of Ecoports, the port has been continuously Port Environmental Review STEM certified.
It is no secret that Harbours gained importance during the last years. To dive into that and to expand your knowledge, we want to show you different aspects of the concept harbour. First, it is important to know the definition of the term. According to the dictionary, a harbour is a part of a body of water along the shore, deep enough for ensuring a ship, and so situated with respect to coastal features, whether natural or artificial, as to provide protection from wind, waves, and currents. But why are harbours so important for the whole world, no matter which continent you are looking at? Harbours provide direct, indirect, and induced benefits. Direct benefits include port and transport services. Due to these services, the port gains money. Indirect benefits are saving many costs because they reduce operating costs and are paid by port users as import and export firms. The induced benefits are not that important for economic uprisals. Moreover, ports expand the market opportunity of companies, national and international, by expanding the market area. But this also means that the competition between companies increases, which leads to lower prices for port traffic users in all economic sectors. Furthermore, the increasing competitiveness ensures that foreign firms get better access to national economies and promotes positive economic benefits at an average level. On this picture, we can see the Duisburg Harbour, the biggest inland port in Europe, where 42.4 million tons of goods were transported in 2020. Harbours like this secure jobs in port-dependent industry also far beyond the port locations. In total, 5.6 million jobs are provided at Duisburg Harbour, whether direct or indirect or induced. As in other companies too, everyone is depending on each other. In Europe, the harbours of Duisburg and Paris were the most important inland ports in 2020. The largest ports in Europe by container throughput in 2020 in million 20-foot equivalent unit were Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Hamburg. The largest commercial ports in Europe are the Port of Rotterdam, Port of Harbours, and the Hamburg port. These ports are located in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany.
But obviously the sea can be used for more. And this is where we come to our next topic, which is fishing.
In 2021, Germany imports round about 144,000 tons of fish and exports just 53,000 tons.
What regulations apply to fishermen? There are state fishing regulations. In Germany, the fishing law says where, when, what, and how much you can fish. There's a special permit for people with fishing license, and the further component is the environment and animal welfare. The German and international fishing laws are for fishermen. In Germany, you have different laws in the federal states for all legal norms that concern fishing, and both ordinary and hobby fishers apply to respective and legal regulations. And there's a separation in two sectors: the sea fishing law and the inland fishing law. The sea fishing law is controlled by international laws, and on top of that, the countries are allowed to make laws themselves. And inland fishing is controlled by laws and regulations of the country itself, and the federal states make separate laws on top. Why is fishing regulated? You have to save the different species that live in the ocean, so you have to make regulations, limitations, fishing quotas, and official requirements. The fishery law. What does the fishing law deals with? It deals with handling of fish and catching them. It's also important that there are rules for fish spawn, crabs, pound, and pearl shells. What is included in the fishing law? It defines handling with fishes and catching them, the laws for execution of fishing and definitions of the animals, and there are different kinds of waters and regulations, which species you are allowed to catch and in which season you are allowed to catch them. And there's an observance of grace period and violations with fines or criminal proceedings.
The definition of illegal fish trading is when foreign ships fish in the waters of different nations without permission, when the fishing laws of the countries are disregarded, and when fishermen fish with unauthorized fishing gear during closed periods or in protected areas. Consequences of illegal fishing is a damage from up to $50 billion for affected nations, sensitive ecosystems are destroyed, and the prices that are coming up for illegal fishing are usually paid by the fishers that obey the laws. Punishments and regulations. In Germany, there will either be a payment from up to €75,000 or an imprisonment of up to 2 years, but that is depending on the federal state. In the EU, the punishments are designed to effectively deprive the fishermen concerned of economic profit and the confiscation of the illegally caught fish. Solutions are that the fishermen obviously have to follow the implementation of the EU regulations, and the complete traceability of products from the net to the plate must be made possible for the consumers and merchants. The most illegal fish trade is happening in the waters of developing countries, especially African countries south of the Sahara. What is overfishing? Overfishing is the huge loss of the fish population in waters because of fishing. More fish are permanently caught in a body of water than they naturally reproduce or migrate to it. About half of all fish populations in Europe are considered to be overfished. The consequences for overfishing is the main reason of the massive drop of species in the marine and coastal ecosystems. Several fish species are extinct, and it is feared for other species. The size of fish in overfished populations decreases steadily, and very often animals get caught that aren't supposed to get caught, like dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and seabirds. Every year, millions of animals die pointless in the fishing nets. A solution for overfishing is that fish populations can be fished permanently at a high level as long as a certain catch is not exceeded. Also, the fishing has to be kept out of protected areas, and there must be closed seasons for fish populations for effective monitoring and stricter control of fishing. The situation of overfishing is especially bad in the European waters. In the Mediterranean Sea and in the Black Sea, 62.2% of stocks are classified as overfished.
Fishing causes round about 640,000 tons of plastic waste each year. 10% of the plastic in the ocean is caused by fishing, which is deadly for animals because they get caught by fishing gears. Fishing nets need 600 years until they decompose and turn into microplastic. Greenpeace, which is an environmental protection organization, is raising awareness and is trying to fight against it.